instances of paranormal phenomena have been reported in this desolate place. Events that may reflect the area's tragic past. Whatever they are, whatever you call them, ghosts, spirits, shades, specters, apparitions, there is not a corner of the world they do not inhabit.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Other Dangerous Podcast, where we talk all things paranormal. I'm Ken James, and this is Jason McKittrick.
Hey, folks.
And if it can haunt, howl, or dwell in the dark, we want to talk about it. So here we are, week 3 of Mothman month, and this week we're continuing our dive into the high strangeness of Indrid Cold. And I'm going to send it over to Jay to give us a look into the history of Mr. Cold.
Okay, folks. Famously encountered by Woodrow Derenberger in 1966, the enigmatic Indrid Cold has become a point of controversy ever since. Join us tonight as we attempt to unravel the mystery.
All right, so before we start digging and break out the shovels, so Jay is going to start us off with this week's jump scare.
Oh, yeah. So this one comes to us from Brad Culp, and it's called The Ghost of Oxford Milford Road. So when Brad Culp was a student at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, there was a rumor that the town was one of the most haunted places in America. You know, like every town. When Culp started an on-campus magazine, he couldn't wait to write about several of the area's most haunted places and famous phantoms. Not long after his story published, though, he kept finding himself thinking about one ghost in particular, the ghost of Oxford Milford Road. As the story goes, many decades ago, probably sometime in the 40s, there was a young man courting a young woman in a rural part of town. Because the woman's parents didn't approve of the match, each night he visited under the cover of darkness, as you do. After her parents went to bed, the young woman would sneak out of her farmhouse and flash the lights of her parents' car 3 times. Then her young suitor would ride his motorcycle down the road. One night, he took the turn right before her house a little too sharp, says Culp. The motorcycle went one way, he went the other. His injuries were so severe that he did not survive. Rumor has it, however, that his love-struck ghost still haunts this stretch of Milford Road. Curious, Culp, his girlfriend, now his wife, and a friend decided to head out there one night to see if they could verify the tale. His girlfriend was worried she'd completely freaked out. She believes more in the stuff than I do, Culp says, but he was mostly concerned that the suspicions that none of this was actually true would be confirmed on this particular night as Culp passed the abandoned farm. An idea came to him and he pitched it to his girlfriend. How could she not say yes? Yeah. Though reluctant, she relented and Culp turned a short way into the farmhouse driveway. He killed the engine and flashed his light 3 times. No joke, there was a single headlight that appeared 3/4 of a mile down the road, Culp says. You saw it start to come, going pretty slow. It kept coming and coming. My wife was freaking out. It was coming closer and closer as a collision seemed imminent. Culp turned on his car's lights. He expected to see a kid on the bike bailing out from his prank now that they'd been caught, but there's nothing there. The light is just gone, he says. They get out of the car. They walked around, try to figure out what it was that they could have seen. So to this day, we still talk about it. I say something I cannot explain, he says. If you get him and his wife around a campfire, they'll swear up and down that the story is true. And if you're ever on Oxford, Ohio, consider parking for just a few minutes on Oxford Milford Road at night to test your own nerve.
I'm into it, man. I love ghostly lights and vehicles. Those are pretty the romantic concept of ghosts and cars has always been interesting to me.
And I like the flip on that one too. I picked that because that's like the flip on the old Resurrection Mary story where she's the one that got killed on the way walking to the dance.
Yeah, you finally get the dude. You finally get the on his motorcycle.
Yeah, this is like the James Dean version or something. Yeah.
So, hey, babe. Oh no!
Here I come.
All right, man. All right, so
I don't know.
I get it.
Shout out to that guy's ghost, but it was probably funny when he died. Oh, that's fucked up.
Oh, Whoa, stop the shade, Jay. Whoa.
See how Ken tried to turn that around on me? It ain't going to work.
Yeah. All right. Well, we know you hate motorcycles. So anyway, all right. So
I do not hate motorcycles. I just hate Ken.
No, even more shade. Even more shade coming our way. Dude, don't hate on the Crow Pig, man. People are becoming fans of the Crow Pig.
People do like the Crow Pig. I feel like the Crow Pig is becoming our own Mothman.
Could be. And then you know what? Well, maybe that'll be a T-shirt.
Exactly.
So anyway, let's break out the shells and start digging here, man. So what do we got on Indrid, man?
Indrid Cold. So yeah, before we dig into it, Indrid Cold in the Mothman Prophecies movie. Mm-hmm. Scary as fuck, right?
Dude, you know, the one of the vague memories I do have of that, I can't pull a whole batch, but I'm gonna, you know, before we get the next episode in, I'm gonna rewatch the movie and you know, take some notes down so we can pick it apart or enjoy as much as we can. But just Indrid Cold in its own is creepy as fuck. The story behind it, and if any of it, if a shred of it's real, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's kind of become its own thing, right? Like the Grinning Man is now its own thing, right?
Yep. Well, and that's one thing too. It's like, okay, before we go into it, it's like, okay, because like I was saying to you before this, like I've done a lot of research to find where this person, Mr. Cold, has shown up in other places, but it has become its own thing at the Grinning Man. So you can find all these different stories of the Grinning Man, but it referring to, you know, Indrid Cold is a whole different, you know, I don't even know if it's a whole different thing, but it's something to really think on, and I really enjoy that. Yeah,
I mean, who can say? I mean, well, let's see. I mean, here I've got some encounters. I've got some of the ones that are, you know, definitively, quote unquote, pinned to Indrid Cold. So first of all, you would think the first encounter of Indrid Cold, most people think would have been with the Mothman case in Point Pleasant. However, it was in 1966, but it took place in New Jersey.
Ooh.
I don't know. So yeah, according to reports, Indrid Cold was first seen on October 16th, 1966 by two boys in New Jersey who were walking when they saw a surreal figure standing near a fence. As they walked closer, the figure was a tall, bald man wearing a metal green suit who was staring right at them with a huge grin. This idiosyncratic man chased them until they got away from him. And UFO sightings were also reported in the area at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. So these two guys, this was Mouse was his nickname, and Jimmy.
Mouse and Jimmy. Yeah. Party with those dudes.
Says, Jimmy nudged me and said, "Who's that guy standing behind you?" I looked around and there was behind that fence, just standing there. There he was. He pivoted around and looked right at us. Then he grinned a big old grin, said Mouse. So,
said Mouse.
Right. So, after this was reported, the boys recalled some more frightening details about the encounter later on. They recalled that the man was in a green suit. He was unusually tall and had unnatural facial features, such as he had no ears and no nose and very beady little black eyes that were far apart. I don't know.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? The thing from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh, the nightmare?
No, the thing.
The thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's man. Yeah. I mean, that was, you know, just the idea, the little beady eyes, the messed up facial features, even though it's folklore, I mean, could possibly be tied in.
So I don't know what, this seems almost like a retconning thing, why that was pinned as Indrid Cold. He didn't identify himself as such. I almost want to feel like someone came back and said, "Oh, that sounds like Indrid Cold," because it happened literally 2 or 3 weeks before the famous Woodrow Derenberger sightings that would happen in November of 1966.
Well, it could probably be tied in just because of the smiling thing, the outfit, you know,
different outfit though, very weird.
Yeah, well, yeah. But like the whole smiling man, the tall thing, like, hey,
did he make that noise? I thought it was all mental.
Well, that's what you would hear. I mean,
okay.
I mean, because the other reports, it's all like, "Don't fear us."
So if you have mental abilities, can you put like a whole soundscape in the other person's head? Like not only are they hearing voice, but you can have like a fucking party going on in their head too. Like you give them the soundtrack and everything.
If you then why even have it? If I can't like make a fucking a rager in your head where I'm like, we're here to do keg stands, you know? Like,
seriously, I mean, like if I could mentally project Peter James into your skull right now,
I'm coming through.
I mean, that's a power, right?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything, but maybe, you know, maybe I didn't feel.
You didn't, but
I'm
the
saying
listeners did. We should do an episode just on Peter James because there's plenty of people who are like, who the fuck is Peter James?
Yeah, I get that a lot too. And we're definitely going to have to do a Peter James.
I'm not kidding, man. We'll do his greatest hits. We'll be like the top 5 Peter James encounters.
Yeah, well, it'll be like the number 15.
Oh, yeah. What's his name?
Yeah.
Chills.
Yeah, Chill. Fucking nuts. Number 15. Was he really a man? It's hard to say. But if I was going to guess, I'd say, yeah, it was a scary man.
Click the follow button to find out more.
Please. And
folks, if you don't know who we're talking about, we're just fucking nuts. Don't worry about it.
Check out my rap videos.
If you're a generous person, you'll listen to my rap videos. Next on YouTube, number 15.
Yeah. Number 15. Was that a spaghetti monster? I think so.
Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, derailed again by something else.
Oh, no,
sorry.
it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so on to the second, what's called canon encounter of Indrid Cold. So on November 2nd, 1966, in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Now, this is happening concurrently during the Mothman sightings, so this is why this gets lumped together, I guess. Woodrow Derenberger was driving his way home on Interstate 77 until he heard a crash. Then an unidentifiable vehicle appeared to land in front of his truck. He described it as an old-fashioned kerosene lamp chimney, flaring at both ends, narrowing down to a small neck, and then enlarging into a great bulge in the center.
I would like to introduce my cohort in this adventure, Mr. Ronald Maines, who is the general manager of WTAP TV and radio. And we are here to ask this gentleman questions, and we will be asking questions for the next half hour to 25 minutes. Our guest is Mr. Derenberger, route number 2, Mineral Wells, West Virginia. Mr. Derenberger has a very interesting story to tell us this evening. I will give you a thumbnail sketch to begin with. Whether or not you believe in unidentified flying objects or not is not the point. Whether you believe in what you hear or see on this program is not the point. We are here to talk to a man that allegedly did make contact with such an object within the Parkersburg area last evening, November the 2nd, 1966, at approximately 7:25 p.m. The incident allegedly took place on Interstate Highway 77 near the interchange of route number 47. This gentleman is a salesman in the area. He has been a resident of the area for the past 50 years, and he has given us permission to interview him, to show his face, and to call him by name. This in itself takes a lot of initiative and, to be very plain, a lot of know-how. Mr. Derenberger, in your own words, would you please relate what happened last night?
Well, I am a salesman and I drive a truck, and last night, shortly after 7 o'clock, I was coming from Marietta, Ohio, coming down Interstate 77. And just before I came to the intersection of Route 47, there was a car past me, overtaking me from behind, and following closely behind this car was this unidentified flying object. And as the car behind passed me, this object was following close behind it, and it swerved directly in front of my truck, turning crosswise. And when it turned crosswise, it slowed down. It started slowing, not abruptly or too fast, but it gave me plenty of time to step on my brakes and slow down with it. But it forced me to come to a complete stop. As soon as I had stopped, there was a door opened in the side of this vehicle, and this man stepped out and came directly to me, or came to the truck. He walked to the right-hand side of the truck, and he told me to roll down the window. He asked me to roll down the window on my right-hand side of my truck.
It looks like an old school candy with like the wrapper, like the little hard candy with the wrappers. That's what I would have said.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know.
So he sees this, right? Mm-hmm. All judgments till the end. He sees this. The grinning man came out of the vehicle who had a dark tan. Now this is, November, which was kind of strange, and then the area would have been strange. And walked up to Derenberger and telepathically said his name was Indrid Cold, and he meant no harm.
How about, how was this gentleman, how was this person dressed? What type of clothing did he wear?
He had a top coat on, and it was zippered down the front. His top, the top two buttons, like my coat here, were open, and this outfit was a shiny material. It was a glassy outfit, like it was metallic, I suppose you would call it. And his shirt was a little bit darker than his jacket. And below his coat, he had on trousers of the same kind of a cloth material. And I believe the trousers were just a shade lighter than his coat.
Which would have been a navy blue. The coat would have been a dark blue.
Yes.
Coat. What about the texture of his skin, the color of his skin, his eyes, eyebrows, eyelashes, hairline? What were these? What did he look like?
He looked perfectly natural and normal as any human being. He had his face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but it was just like he had been out in the sun a lot and had a good tan. His hair was combed straight back, and it was a dark brown, and he seemed to have a good thick head of hair, and his eyebrows, his face, his features were very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different from any other man that we'd meet on the street, and I'd done what he asked. And this man stood there, and he first asked me what I was called, and I knew he meant my name, and I told him my name. And he asked me, he said, why are you frightened? He said, don't be frightened, we wish you no harm. He said, we mean you no harm, we wish you only happiness. And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cold. That was the name that he was called by.
Cold said he just wanted to know more about the human race, and he would visit Derenberger again. And he also told Derenberger that he was from the planet Lanulos.
Yeah, and he also asked about, like, what is that over there? And he was like, oh, that's a town. And he's like,
that's a town. Oh, in my society, we call that a gathering.
Yeah, a gathering.
It's like, so... interesting note, aside from, his encounter, the next day he was able to give a TV interview. And this is actually on YouTube. We're going to intersperse a few clips from here so you can hear his, I will say his sincerity is definitely there. Whatever he's telling us, I think he believes is true. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, there's definitely conviction behind it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that, this was 1966, so I guess the UFO craze was in full force. So I guess people or news stations or whatever were eager to get, interviewees on there to discuss the topic.
Well, yeah, and one of the cool things too that I found was that, like, they were just going to throw out this reel-to-reel audio that they had, and when they were like, well, let's see what's on here, and it turns out it was the audio of that interview, which is pretty cool. You find that kind of stuff, and whether it's embellishment, it's not true or not, whatever, it's definitely it adds this layer of kind of creepiness that old timey reel-to-reel recording of someone like, no, tell us, sir, did you,
I love
that
old-timey feel. Yeah, absolutely. So Woodrow received several additional visits from Indrid Cold. On some of these subsequent visits, Indrid was not alone. Derenberger revealed that his new friends came from a planet called Lanulos, like I said, and that during one visit, he was allowed to take a trip there. He was gone for sometimes weeks at a time. Sometimes he could recall the details. Other times he couldn't recall them at all. And then after the last of these meetings, Derenberger sought out the renowned UFO investigator John Keel, who we mentioned last time, who, he wrote the legendary Mothman prophecies, very different from the movie. And he reported all of Derenberger's events in great detail. So, but what I thought was interesting was during these interviews where he was meeting with Derenberger, Keel himself was getting phone calls from Indrid Cold, or someone claiming to be Indrid Cold, which is interesting. And I think it absolutely, I think that's where they pull that whole scene from the movie Mothman Prophecies, where he gets that phone call. So, but that's about it for the alleged sightings and alleged encounters. It went on for years with Derenberger, Indrid Cold coming and going. His own family members, they said, "Oh yeah, we saw him a bunch of times. He looked like a normal human," which is interesting.
And they're, going even to the show Hellier and like their research and everything. Like there apparently is people that there was an address and he was, a lot of people said, "Oh, it was just a human," and all that kind of stuff. But you said we're going to reserve some the criticisms for the end. But
although I will do one criticism right now, folks, if you haven't watched Hellier, don't.
Oh, whoa!
Waste of time.
I enjoyed the shit out of it, by the way.
That's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. Ken, you're an asshole. It's fine. Fucking crow pig.
It's fine.
Anywho.
So then we have the what's called the third sighting, which is okay. So this is during the same period as the Derenberger sightings, but this actually took place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and this was the Lilly family. They've been reporting there was strange poltergeist activity happening in their home, where they were seeing these diamond-shaped lights in and around their home. Strange. And the Lily's daughter, Linda, was sleeping one night and awoke to see a man standing over her. She said, "It was a man, a big man, very broad. I couldn't see his face very well, but I could see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me. I screamed again and hid under the covers. When I looked again, he was gone." So they've tied that to Indrid Cold because of the grinning, right? However, this sighting by the Lilly family suggests instead that it might be a ghost or a spirit of some kind. It may have been connected to the poltergeist activity and maybe not Indrid Cold.
Yeah.
Right. So,
there is people out there that like to associate the poltergeist activity with extraterrestrials or
right,
things
and
of
that
nature. So
right, and that goes into the whole high strangeness that was a high strangeness that was occurring here, because now they're kind of folding all these things together. However, her sighting could very easily be explained away as sleep paralysis.
Absolutely.
It's classic sleep paralysis.
Yep.
So, So, as far as Indrid Cold goes, in that time period, those are the only three events that they consider the three events. Was the first initial sighting by the kids in New Jersey, which I don't know why that gets lumped together, but we'll take it. I guess it's just the time period.
Is that you accepting it for New Jersey?
We'll take it.
We'll take it.
Yeah, it's the tri-state area draft.
Yeah.
We're gonna take Indrid Cold kids for New Jersey.
Yeah.
And Ken's gonna take Goblins by the Crick for Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, they're actually gnomes. So we're taking gnomes in Bucks County. We're taking gnomes, so we'll get those.
Oh, we're dividing it by county now.
Well, I mean, that's what they were.
Okay.
Well, you don't have to. I'll take it for PA. I'll take it for PA.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Did you come across any salient points that you wanted to share about Mr. Cold?
All right. So all right. There's been a lot of movies that have, and I think even writings that have like twined this into their storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like you said, like the first one. Why is that the ones in Jersey? Why is that why is that associated with Indrid Cold besides the fact of the UFO activity that happened around it and the Smiling Man?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what most of it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the one of where he, his vehicle, the guy tried to swerve around it, stopped in front of him, was levitating 8 to 10 inches approximately off the ground, and his details of like. He's like, all right, he crossed a path, from my lights, and the whole thing was telepathy. And he said, make it easy for yourself. And it's open-ended in the way of that, like, okay, you can tie any kind of strange man doing these kind of things. And maybe you encountered one of the other dangers that is a different being, a different entity. But, it just goes, okay, it's similar. So I don't want to put a definitive answer and say any of these were Indrid Cold. But no, in my research, I haven't found really many that were actually linked to Indrid Cold.
Yeah, it seems to me that the specific Indrid Cold is just the encounters that are with Woodrow Derenberger.
Yeah,
that name seems unique in that I haven't seen another case where they say or the entity identifies themselves as Indrid Cold. It's just that one, and I think it's really interesting that he's become linked with the Mothman. You know what I mean? Like from the outside, if the time periods were different, or if it was just a year later, nobody would even link these things together. Yeah. But it's just because they're happening at the same time. It's almost like,
Well, one of the interesting thoughts that I had was with the MIBs associated with it. Could he have been some sort of agent of government that was investigating, these kind of things, or maybe had a lead on something?
Sure. I mean, that comes up. I mean, people mention he could have been one of the Men in Black. And also, it's also disputed, like, they say the Grinning Man, and then you see like all these illustrations up on Google where it's like, oh, it's the Joker basically. And then like you go back to the main interviews with Derenberger, and he's like, he was just smiling. He had a very inviting smile. And then like, 50 years of internet and he becomes the goddamn Joker. So
yeah. And the thing is, it's like all the illustrations and all the pictures they have, it's not like the smile isn't like an inviting smile. It's a super fucking creepy smile that if this motherfucker's walking up to my car, he's getting run over. You know what I mean? Like,
And when you listen to the Derenberger interview, he is frightened, but not because the guy is smiling, but because the guy's talking to him telepathically.
And again, he told me not to be frightened, which I was. I was very frightened. And as far as I can understand, this was all mental. There was no spoken words from him. I knew what he was asking me, but yet he stood there and his mouth did not move. He had a smile on his face. He appeared very courteous and friendly. And after I talked with him a while, he told me he would see me. He said, "We will see you again," and he left in his vehicle.
And then there's this craft or vehicle that as soon as he approached and started talking, shot straight up into the air, without engine sound or anything like that. But the thing, like my thing would say maybe it could be linked into MIBs, not saying that I'm, a full-on believer in that subject, but it ties into other cases where, like, in different parts where, like, people were claiming UFO activity, and then they would actually have, like, video in the lobby of these two dudes who looked identical. They lacked any, real discerning features, and they were just, calm, cool. Oh, I do have information on this, and they almost looked like clones.
Right.
And shapeshifters. But, it kind of lends itself to that. So it's like, okay, so we have that.
And then there's also the, it's been said that, and by Derenberger, that the Grinning Man could possibly be a species of aliens known as Grinning Men. which I think is stupid.
Wait, so you're telling me that it's impossible that there is a let's call them a system. Like there's a system out there that isn't just full with grinning men?
Well,
no
okay.
women, just men.
Well, maybe you just can't, distinguish the two from each other. Maybe on their planet they groom themselves to all look the same, and we just see them as grinning men.
And they smush tips and reproduce that way.
Possibly. I mean, that's why they're grinning. I don't know. Smushing intergalactic tips. I don't know.
They do call it space docking.
There it is.
Canceled. Knock the mic over.
No, it's an interesting idea, but I think you have to suspend a lot of disbelief to be like, okay, here's Indrid Cold. He's a member of this race of aliens called the Grinning Men.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
Like that's interesting, and I could see where they're trying to go.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Then there was another theory that I came across that Indrid Cold was actually a shapeshifter, and that when he was encountering Derenberger on the road, and he was just like taking human form, and that's why it was like he was like, oh, human, like if you were a shapeshifter and you were coming to a new planet, and you're like, oh, when people greet each other, they smile at each other. I should go over to this guy with a big smile on my face.
Yeah,
and he was just like learning how to be human. I kind of like that one. That was kind of interesting.
Wasn't that like in like Critters 3 or something, where like the creature was just like, whoop, and like took the form of like a hot woman, and the guys were like, yeah, fuck it, we love you.
Right.
But yeah, no, I see here once again, like you said, suspend disbelief.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's plausible. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah. These are the talking points when you come to these kind of things.
Yep.
And see, I do like the extraterrestrial thing.
Yeah.
Like let's say there is, the high strangeness and these things that are happening, and in comes this being that's trying to be like, well, like something's going on here. I'm here to investigate. Oh, here's a person on the side of the road. Let me just try to assimilate and talk to him as best I can. Come up with a big smile. Hey.
Right. My favorite that I heard was that the Mothman was this escaped alien creature that had like crossed dimensions and ripped into our like time continuum. And and Indrid Cold was like this intergalactic space cop chasing Mothman.
Oh, that's the best.
I mean, that is fun, but then that throws out the whole like, touching tips thing, and I can't get into it.
Yeah, we'll hold that one in, but my favorite so far is that Indrid Cold is a space cop. That's or dimension cop.
Interdimensional space cop.
Yeah. Jesus, that is awesome.
I kind of like that. And then like he's trying to like reel in this creature. It basically turns into, it really is more like the movie Men in Black then, that they're chasing down this monster.
Yeah.
That's the version of the movie I want to see.
They should have done it like that, but we were in that point of the late 90s, early 2000s where they were just like, let's get super serious. And
I actually like that movie quite a bit.
Well, like I said, we're going to discuss it in the next episode, so let's squash this here, and I'll rewatch it again, and then we'll go into the details on that. But no, I just I like the mystery and the recording from the dude, because it's just creepy in its essence, It's just the him recanting the story of what happened, and his, he sounds genuine, but like who's to say, he wasn't, smacked up on something.
Well, there's a few. Do we want to go into the skeptic explanations?
We can go into them. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's go into them.
All right. So yeah, here's the ultra skeptical explanations. Okay, so first and most obviously, Derenberger was possibly suffering from mental illness, and the whole thing was a delusion.
Right on.
So that's right there. Second, and possibly my favorite, because I think it actually holds a lot of weight. Okay, this is 1960s rural America, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not the most accepting place in the world, right?
Yes.
Okay. The second theory is that Derenberger was in fact having an affair, right? And that the encounters with Indrid Cold were just a ruse to hide his homosexual relationship he was having with whoever Cold really was.
No.
Think about that. Disappears for 2 weeks at a time. Oh, I was with the aliens. This is 1960s West Virginia. I mean, hey, no shade to West Virginia, but...
Oh, no, there's shade. No, don't you take
that wasn't
that
shade. It's West Virginia in the 60s. I mean, you know, I actually heard this from a couple different sources, and I was like, you know what? I could get behind that one.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
That negates the whole space vehicle thing, you know?
That's why I said this is the skeptical portion of the show.
My bad. I'm sorry.
If you want, or even better, folks, if you want to come up with your own version of this, folding in the skeptical versions and the crazy fantastical versions, we're good with it. If you want to turn those in, we'll read them. We'll read them on air next week.
Yeah. Please. Oh man. Yeah. If you're listening, fold in the skeptical versions with, make your own little fan fiction here, guys.
Yeah. Tell us what you think happened, but not really.
Yeah.
If you had if you had a magic wand that said, okay, what was really going on with Indrid Cold? You just go for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The best ones are getting read next week.
Yeah. I want the old, the old monkey at a typewriter kind of thing. Like eventually it'll come up with something, you know.
Yeah. Well, also too, if you add in the Mothman and Crow Pig.
Okay.
Even better. Not better for you? Not better for you?
Ken, stop trying to make Crow Pig happen. It's not going to happen. No, actually, I actually think it could happen. I actually like Crow Pig.
I think Crow Pig is I think he's a monster, dude. He's out there. So
we need a drawing of Crow Pig so we can have like a visual.
I'll do it. I'll fucking do it.
And we also need I think we need a Crow Pig sound effect.
I got to get to work.
Yeah.
Get to work on that. But so back to the skeptical point of view. Besides it being total bullshit, you know, like just this guy reporting this before it, and then and even reporting it then to support his habits that he wanted to hide, which that even in itself's a little implausible. Like going to the news to hide your affair, that's a little.
Hey, how do you hide? What's the best way to hide a secret? Right now in the open.
Yeah, but that sensationalizing it is a little drastic.
Sure. I'm not saying it's the be all end all. If I had to put my money down on it, I would say he was suffering from some kind of mental illness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or it could have been the guy who was saying he was Indrid Cold could have been fucking with him. Like, oh, let's get this guy, and they show up and they just do this ruse for weeks, and then they come hang out. Hey, come hang out. We'll take you to our planet. Nobody's looking. They just bring out one of those old school like blackjack things, just whack him out like as he's going out. And then they just store him in this weird hotel for 2 weeks. Just keep shooting him up with some kind of knockout agent.
Yeah. Well, they just keep chloroforming, and as they wake up, they just have different Christmas lights in the room.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, we're on our planet."
They put on alien mask. Ooh, aliens.
Yeah. And he's just like, "Oh God, I'm here."
It was too horrible to remember.
What was it? It might have been made up to look like a holiday in Paramus.
Right. And that's the whole problem with aliens.
Yeah.
You just can't trust them.
You can't.
Sometimes you get, some harmless ones, E.T., Starman. But most of the time they turn out to be some kind of giant lizard.
Yeah, beautiful.
Folks, if you don't know where that's from, don't listen to the show.
Yeah, then get out. Get out. Go to regular Dangerous podcast.
Which, wait a minute. Is there a link then between Peter Venkman and Indrid Cold? Because at the end, he tells you goodbye through telepathy.
There would have to be. They're the end all be all, and we're just here, riding the coattails of the Ghostbusters.
However, when he gets back to his studio director, they're like, nobody wants to talk to you. They think you're a fraud. And he's like, I am a fraud. So it's,
Well, that could be the actual link there. But that was the skeptical portion of the show.
Yeah. I don't know. I Indrid Cold himself is so wrapped up into it that it's so interesting that it's endured this long, that on the outside it's like a guy just shows up out of a UFO and starts talking to this guy, and it goes on for years.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting, but it's also not an isolated incident. There were plenty of these types of things that happened throughout the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the thing. Like, so, all right, so when something is that kind of creepy, and like when you hear that kind of story, it almost is so compelling that of course you're going to get hangers on. You're going to get people that latch onto it and repeat telling these kind of stories, which, you know, could be this one was credible, and then anything that came out with it was just like, you know, utter bullshit.
Right.
And like, well, let's go back to not, you know, suspending disbelief here and just talking about that encounter. Like that is, it's true. It's truly a frightening thing if you were to experience that.
Sure.
And, you know, someone's talking you through your mind, and then they go, you know, whatever's easier for you to do. If you want to just talk with your mouth or with your mind, I got you. We're good. Like, and then watching that craft blast off, like, do we want to believe? Yes, of course we do.
Sure.
But, you know, we're here to discuss them. And, but yeah, I mean, like any of these things, like one of them could be real, and then the next 1,000 are just piggybacking off someone's real traumatic experience. And then people are just like, well, I want to be known for having one too. So
absolutely. And I think a lot of the, Mothman sightings and things that are involved with this story or have been, you know, retconned into, you know, almost this story. And I think there's no, other than the time period, there's no real reason to think that the Indrid Cold story does in fact link to the Mothman story. You know, I mean, on the outset, I mean, if you look at just the Darren Berger stories, with the name, specifically the name Indrid Cold, it's like, okay, well, that just folds into high strangeness. And if you want to say that the high strangeness all folded together, and that included Mothman, that included Indrid Cold, that included these poltergeist sightings that the other family was experiencing, and, you know, the other stuff, that's the only way I could see that they were really, you know, tied together, you know? So,
yeah. I mean, but that's where we, like, the high strangeness thing. Like that is probably the most interesting portion of all this, is that all this stuff was reported to happen in this area. Right. Like, I've heard that, you know, that like Point Pleasant and the area surrounding Point Pleasant became like this, like, you know, like dimensional time warp vortex where like all these things just happened at once and then like just stopped. Yeah. Right. So folks like to, you know, point to, like we said in the last episode, the Silver Bridge collapse. Like that happened, and then it's almost like it stopped after that, which is interesting, you know? Well, that right there, that could go back right to the first episode when we were talking about the Curse of Chief Gornstalk. I mean, that could have just been the Great Revenge. That could have just been all of it culminating into this big, you know, you were all at peace. Well, guess what? Boom. Okay, now it goes away. Do you think that Indrid Cold and the Mothman had a fight on the Silver Bridge like Spider-Man and the Green Goblin? Oh, and that's why it collapsed? If we know any animators, just do it. just do that. I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. You know that's what happened, right? Yeah. Indrid was like, I found you, big smile. Mothman was like, not today, Indrid, you know, and then like, and so commenced. No, Mothman was like, and then they had some kind of like epic, you know, kind of like space blaster, Dragon Ball Z 8-episode fight. Where like 6 of those episodes are just them grinning at each other and like wondering why their power level's so high. Yeah, and breathing and just being like, he's at level 35,000. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, the bridge was just like, no, done. Yeah, and it just got too crazy. Like, you know, he's firing these blasts and like the Mothman's flying around and he's like, you know, and then he misses and it hits that bolt and oh shit, the whole fucking bridge collapses. Yeah, and a half episode is him doing that face and just going, right. Because of his damage that he's done. And then Mothman goes Super Mothman 5. and that's the end of it all. And they both, you know, Mothman disappears. Indrid Cold gets picked up by a spaceship. Sure. Him out. Sure. Yeah. Just to get, you know, land in Jersey, you know, 10 years later as a black-eyed child. Yeah, I don't like those like that's okay. So we haven't talked about this yet, but have you come across any of these the unifying theory of the paranormal? Have you heard about this at all? Look,
Just to mention for a second.
yeah, no, go ahead. You elaborate because look,
There's not much to elaborate. It's that everything is connected in the paranormal world, and I hate that.
Yeah, well, that's crow peg. But no, like the concept that anything is. Once again, you're generalizing and putting your thumb on something and saying, "Oh no, this is all the same." When, dude, shut up. You know? Well,
I think by their very nature, these things kind of have to be isolated incidents, because if they're all under the same umbrella, then like what? Like,
it's like no. So okay, so all right, so let's break it down by the quote unquote scientists. So you get cryptozoology of cryptids, which are biological creatures that may or may not exist.
Right.
Then you have poltergeist, which is an energy based, usually attributed to someone who is manifesting it being whatever state of life they're in. Then you have UFOs and aliens, which is another kind of biological creature that is from another galaxy or planet. And you add in fucking interdimensional beings, which is another thing, and then just ghosts, which is residual hauntings, things like that. And then curses. Like, don't lump all those things into one thing. That's why you call this high strangeness, because all these things are happening.
Right. I like high strangeness that it's indefinable. So you can only define it with that distinction of it being, well, this is just high strangeness. Like, yeah. So to try to go into that unifying theory of the paranormal, which I've encountered a few times looking into this stuff, and with other things too, it's just that's like starting to gain steam with people. That's like makes, I don't know, it takes like the mystery out of it, and it's like, well, there's less evidence for that than the others.
Well, here's the deal with that. It comes into this kind of like almost new agey philosophy of just like general acceptance for whatever someone has told you, or like I don't know how to really lick and turn the page on it, but it's like the thing is, it's
you shouldn't lick your fingers right now. It's COVID.
I washed them. I just did the dishes. Yeah, but I'm saying like so like look, the reason that it's very interesting is because all these different things have their own lore, their own history, their own sightings, their own things. And if we're all just going like, no, look, Bigfoot, interdimensional being, was dropped down by the spaceships that are, like, well, then what are we doing? Yeah. Well, you're welcome, Jay. But like, so what are we, so so we're just saying that like all this is like tied into like, giants and things of that nature. Like, I don't know. I just don't, I'm tired of like everyone claiming that like, okay, we have a handle on it.
Well, that's the problem, right? Yeah. We find this shit interesting because essentially there is no answer. We're never going to come to a final answer. And these, jagoffs are coming around with like, oh, we've got the answers for everything. I was like,
fuck the dude. Fucking dude. fuck it, dude. Fuck out of here. You fucking cheesesteak, get the fuck out of here, man.
That too. I mean, cheesesteak, sure.
Well, I was being Philadelphia, I was just telling them what they can do with their everything's related opinion.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, get your cheesesteak, get the fuck out of here, all right? Birds are playing Sunday.
Up your fucking ass.
Birds playing Sunday, Phil's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Always going to get a laugh.
Right. That was we should have a little segment for that every week. Ken's like, walk down Broad Street with Ken.
Yeah. And it's me just cursing in a Philadelphia accent, just yelling at what I'm mad about paranormally this week.
Right. What makes me angry paranormally? Dude, what fucking bothers me, bro?
Dude, tell me about our fucking spaceship, dude. Tell me about our fucking spaceships flying over fucking stadiums, dude. Fucking go fuck yourself on your couch, You can fucking go down Billy House Road, dude.
I'm sure that wouldn't get old at all.
Yeah, well, imagine being around it. Imagine living there.
Yeah, well, I did for a couple of years, but you've been saturated in it.
Yeah, so everything. I'm like, dude, no, I had this crazy experience. Dude, you fucking see a fucking ghost, dude? You fucking see? Yeah, tell fucking ghost to fucking eat my ass, dude. Fuck that shit, man. Fucking dude. But anywho, yeah. So the idea of the all the paranormal being connected. I mean, like, it's only connected just because it's paranormal. That's how I see it.
That's true. And then if you really think about it, only a few of them are really connected. If you think about it, right? So, like, what is cryptozoology? If these are just animals, what do they have to do with ghosts at all?
Nothing.
Unless there's like a fucking party going on that we don't know about.
It's like a monster mash, but like
a fucking,
all of them.
Yeah, it's like a paranormal party, like, and we're just missing out on it.
We are. If that's real,
yeah.
Like me and you are like just like, man,
come on, guys.
Yeah, I'll bring the hams. Like,
seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What are we gonna do with these folks, man? What are we gonna do with these folks that are just lumping everything in together?
I don't know, man. But if there is a paranormal party that we're missing out on, I want to know about it. And if our spirit guide Peter James could help us,
I'm coming through.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. So yeah, getting back to Indrid Cold, one of the things is I think mostly that pop culture has kind of usurped it, knowing it as like an entity or a being that has had such a big effect on the Mothman case. And, you know, anytime you're going to research it, you're going to come back to the Mothman prophecies or the Mothman monster or all that kind of stuff, just in the high strangeness of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's showing up in what? The Grinning Man's used in tons of stuff now. No, I mean, just in the small scale, and I had to laugh a little bit. My daughter's reading this book series, and the main bad guy is just this guy called the Grinning Man. And then she was telling me about it. She's like, "Oh, what?" She's like, the bad guy is called the Grinning Man." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, and I told her about, you know, Indrid Cold, and then, like, you know, in some I forget what comic he showed up in, but like that's literally like just like the devil, and like it's, you know,
yeah,
and you know.
Yeah, they also there's like creepypastas about it, yes. Which is clearly it's like, okay, you're just doing Indrid Cold, you know, and all that. So it's when you go to try to just lock down on what this character is and what he meant to this specific case and the high strangeness of it all, it's totally just like a lot of these other creatures and entities. It's taken, usurped, and then basically just packaged in and repackaged into these different stories. Sure.
And it becomes part of, you know, sort of like, you know, the collective lore, and then part of that, you know, whole like collective unconscious thing where he becomes like, you know, a character or an archetype that you can just take and plug in, and like now you have all, you know, aside from these sightings, like I said before, you know, you go onto any website and you look up Indrid Cold. Oh, there's tons of sightings, but they're all like recent. Like it was, I saw Indrid Cold. He was at the gas station and he was smiling and he waved at me. It's like,
yeah. And then I pull it off and then he was still smiling and it was terrifying. So like, yeah, I get it. Oh, the creepiness is built in. The architecture of the character is already there.
Yeah.
So you're just repackaging and removing it. But just the last thing on the guy itself. So the creepiest part is I still think is that from the tapes and the actual, you know, the account told by our dude. And yeah, anything else, you know, you might have to just take with a grain of salt.
Well, I would say that about specifically this episode, because I came into this episode, you know, I was like, oh, here we go, digging in, you know, here we go, rubbing my hands, like, all right, finally digging into Indrid Cold, and I get to it, and you know, Indrid kind of left me cold. Ooh, dad jokes, dad puns. And honestly, that really was the case, because there really isn't that much to him. He's become because he's become part of this legend, he's become immortal, and he just gets plugged in with the rest of it. I mean, honestly, as far as like the Mothman case is concerned, like he's a very, very small part of it if you want to include him. But it's kind of crazy that like the Mothman itself is actually more documented than Indrid Cold, who's just a man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where we us as people like to take shit and run with it, you know, just building our own, you know, in just inserting, shoehorning.
Yeah, I mean,
these
people
kind
love
of
to tell
classics.
stories, man. It's just, people love it, and then just to have this big thing happen in one area. Don't get me wrong, I love it, and I'll listen to Mothman stories. And you want to tell me about this kind of stuff, I love it. Yeah. But the Indrid Cold part, maybe the weakest link of the chain for me personally.
Absolutely. But I guess we're going to move on to our closing statements here, and I'll start off.
I'll just go fuck myself, sure.
Serve the shade now. Jay's on the shade list. Toss him on.
What?
I said Jay's on the shade list. Toss him on.
Sorry, I passed out. What happened? Yeah. Aliens took me away for 2 weeks. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Oh, well. Welcome back, Jay. So what happened was, all right, so while you were gone, you were a prick. Also. That's
no different.
Yeah, that's no different now. Yeah.
I'm sorry, buddy. Yeah, let's hear those closing statements.
All right. So my closing statements is basically you could have a real compelling story that's really interesting, and almost 100% of the time it's going to get tossed into anybody's weird situation, a weird story, and they already have the lore packed in, and they can just connect it, and they're just going to run with it. You're just going to be dealing with Indrid Cold out your fucking ears until eternity.
Right. I agree. Closing statements for me is, number one, somebody please make that movie where Indrid Cold fights Mothman on top of the Silver Bridge.
Oh my God.
Number one. But number two, this case is really interesting, and I really like the whole component of all these things being lumped together, becoming this high strangeness, and then just being under this blanket term of, the Mothman case. I love it. It's it's an American legend. It's fantastic, and it really just says a lot about the folks that live there, and then just are needing for these kinds of stories. And I just think it's just very telling about about American culture.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Jay, next week, closing off Mothman month.
Yeah, man, we're gonna finish our first deep dive month. This is gonna be another loosey goosey episode for the next one. We're gonna wrap it up. Our thoughts on the Mothman. We'll revisit some things. Maybe some throw in some final thoughts on some things. I know we want to discuss the movie a little bit. Maybe
Absolutely.
some pop culture references.
Pop culture. Oh. They couldn't see my head there. I wish they could see my head what I was doing there.
Yeah, it's glorious. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do the next one. We're just gonna have a good time talking about our thoughts on the whole case whatsoever, and I think it'll be a good time.
Yeah, we're gonna break it down, and for that, I'm Ken James.
I'm Jason McKittrick.
And as always, have a spooky evening.
Spooky.
Thank you for listening to Other Dangers Podcasts. Have you had a run-in with the Other Dangers? You can reach us at otherdangerspodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to have a short discussion about the Other Dangers, you can find us on Facebook and on Instagram at Other Dangers Podcast. We are now streaming on iTunes Podcasts, Amazon, Google, and many other streaming services. We are also available on YouTube. And please, after listening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you the Other Dangers.